Nintendo.
Oh, Nintendo. I mean, you know him. I know him. I'm sure your grandpa knows him. Someone's grandpa knows him. Someone's grandpa has to know him. My grandpa knows him. Right, grandpa? I mean, come on. Everybody knows him. They made things like this. And this. And this. But we can just forget about that one because it's really lackluster and dog crap. And I'll explain to you why in the video. So, you may know them for games like Zelda, Mario, or Animal Crossing, but they actually have a more deep and fascinating past. And that's what we're going to be exploring today. Hello, I'm Maxwell Witten. I'm your host of Course Crash. It's not at all similar to Crash Course. Please don't sue me. And today, we're going to be looking at the history of Nintendo. Alright, let's go back to the beginning. Nintendo was founded as Yamauchi Nintendo by Masahiro Yamauchi on September 23rd, 1889. This company was originally a Hanafuda card producer. By the way, I'll let you in on a little secret. Hanafuda is a seriously famous card game in Japan. I mean, look at how pretty this art is on the cards. I mean, look at this. It's Hanafuda Bird. Hanafuda Bird, everybody. Give a warm welcome to Hanafuda Bird. Welcome to the show. What would you like to talk about today?
Baba Booey.
Stop it. However, sadly for Yamauchi, he didn't have a son to fall back on and become the president and take up the company for him whenever he eventually moved on. So, following the common Japanese tradition, he decided, you know what, I'll just adopt my son-in-law. Duh. And so he did. And Sekiro Kaneda decided to take up his wife's last name of Yamauchi. As president, he decided to change the name of Yamauchi Nintendo to Nintendo & Co. Ugh! Imagine that! Imagine doing that! Why would you do that? The only problem with this company was that it was getting too much traction. They're handmade Hanafuda cards. I mean, it's too much demand. They literally have like hundreds of people waiting outside the store. Can you at least form a line, please? So they decided, you know what, why don't we just like hold a meeting and talk about it and discuss like normal human beings. And so they did that. And it went a little something like this. There's too many people outside of our store. You guys want to do anything about that? Anyone have ideas? Anyone? What if we just made plastic cards, since they're easier to make? Yeah. Okay. That sounds good. And so, they became the first Hanafuda card company in Japan to mass-produce plastic cards. Now there's no demand. Now there's no monkeys waiting outside our building. How crazy is that? Oh, get this. It's the 1980s, and now we're experimenting with technology. That's what Nintendo said. They decided, you know what? Excuse me. Let's grab some wires. Let's mix it up with our little fingies, see what we can get going. And they created the Game & Watch, which is the first handheld console that can also be a watch. Hence, Game & Watch. You want to play juggle ball while looking at what time it is? Well, get this. It's 9 o'clock at night, Billy. You gotta go to bed. Go to bed right now. And so Game & Watch was a massive success. And they said, you know what? If that was good and it put money in my wallet, let's just keep doing it and make it better. So they made a bigger, better version of the Game & Watch called the Nintendo Entertainment System, NES for short. They have hit titles like Mario Brothers, Donkey Kong, Legend of Zelda, big names, big franchises too now. And at this point, Nintendo, they're more known for their technology than they are for their Hanafuda cards. So they said, why don't we just put that in the garbage? No Hanafuda Bird anymore. No, go away, you little nematode. Get out of here! And they were so big that they had their own magazine called the Nintendo Power Hour. And you know what? It did great. And they decided to announce, you know what? We're going to make even more games for the NES. We got Mario 2. We got Metroid. We got Princess Tomato in the Salad Kingdom. Yes, that is a real NES game. And if I had to read it and look at it and study it, then you're going to have to listen to me name it. Okay? Just deal with it. And so, in that same year, that same exact year, they decided, why don't we make a handheld console that's better than the Game & Watch? And they did. They made the Game Boy with games like Tetris and Tetris and Tetris. Oh, bless thee, Tetris. Thank God. Thank you, Tetris, for breathing thy light onto my Game Boy. Thank you. Oh, Tetris. Tetris. Thank you. Fast forward again to the 90s, and let me tell you, they like having money. They sure love having money. And so they decided, let's make a bigger, better, higher selling version of the NES. And they did. They called it the Famicom in Japan. But before they released it to America, they decided, why don't we change the name to something more easier on the brain for those dumb, stupid, low IQ Americans? Because they won't understand what family computer means. So they called it the Super NES, aka the SNES, aka the SNES, aka the Bingalo Bongalo Bingaloid. I call it that occasionally, from time to time. And it did good there too. And so they decided, why don't we try 3D? Because we want to try the Z-axis this time. Yes, I'm calling it Z. It's I don't pronounce it Z, I pronounce it Z. And so they made the Virtual Boy, which was kind of like virtual reality goggles, except it's on a tripod and you have a controller and you look into it and you can play tennis in 3D. How cool is that? The problem with that was it absolutely tanked and it did not do good. It cost them $500,000 in debt. That's a lot of money out of my pocket and a lot more monkeys at the back of my store complaining. All right, so they decided we can't just let this take us out. And they made the Nintendo 64 after experimenting with 3D some more. And let me tell you, that thing did really good with hit titles like Mario 64, Zelda Ocarina of Time, Hey You Pikachu, Pokemon Rumble, and it did really good. It sold over 500,000 units on its first day. Let me tell you. I'll tell you this much. Everyone and their mothers were hauling their booty to Radio Shack to get their hands on one of these bad boys. It's a couple years later. It's 2001. Nintendo fans are kind of like, we're kind of done with the Nintendo 64, and I don't want to play my Game Boy anymore because I'm bored of Pokemon Red and all that. So they decided, let's make another console that has 3D graphics, but it doesn't look like sandpaper. And so they made the GameCube with titles like Luigi's Mansion and Pikmin and Animal Crossing. That game is the best, I promise you, okay? And the console was great, and it sold well, but they wanted more money than how much the GameCube made. And I mean, like, seriously, they want a lot of money. They're really money hungry, alright? Like, really money hungry. It was then, in 2004, after having enough of not having as much money in their bank account as they did with the Nintendo 64, that they said, let's make another handheld console, and let's call it the DS. What a beautiful, nostalgic sound. And let me tell you, it did okay. And by okay, I mean it had 3 million pre-orders. 3 million. Do you know how many zeros that is? That's so many that when writing this script, I typed it out as million, the word, and not numbers, because that's too many zeros, and I don't want to be reading 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. The DS, while doing amazing, some Nintendo fans were like, it hurts my eyes, it's too tiny. Can we have another home console so I can play it on my TV? Maybe. Thank you. Please. And so they made the Wii with, and in the commercial, the Japanese businessmen, they walk out of their car and they go to the door and they go, we would like to play with you. And I was like, well, by golly, this is just the greatest day of my life. I was like, as a kid, I was watching this with my grandpa, and I was like, whoa, new Wii game. Whoa. Right, Grandpa? Okay. And they had some pretty good titles on the Wii. They had games like Mario Galaxy, Twilight Princess, Animal Crossing City Folk. I swear on my life, I played that game religiously until I was 10. Before I tell you about this next console, I need to remind you about how money hungry Nintendo was back then. They saw how good the Wii did, and they said, why don't we make Wii 2? Better version of Wii. Yeah? Yeah? Let's do it. And so they did that. And that was one of their biggest mistakes. That was, Nintendo fans will remember that forever. They, don't get me wrong, it's a perfectly fine console. It has good games, has good music, but it's just, it tanked. It tanked just like the Virtual Boy did, and it cost them even more. Again, perfectly fine console. Has great games on it. But let me offer you this, alright? Would you rather have a Wii U or your uncle's wet, grimy, nasty, slimy socks? You're probably going to say the Wii U, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say here. I'll give him this much. The Wii U was a test in some ways. That's what I believe. Because what came next was like the older, bigger, more successful brother to the Wii U. It was called the Nintendo Switch. And let me tell you this, Nintendo Switch, that's the peak of all Nintendo consoles, selling over 61 million units. With titles on their console like Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild. Need I mention Animal Crossing? Do I need to mention that again? I think that just goes to show how good of a console that Nintendo Switch was. I think what we should all take away from this video is that Nintendo, you're money hungry, but I love you, and you should sponsor me. And they have come a long way from their humble Hanafuda business, you know? So, I'll give them that much. Thank you, Nintendo. Thank you, English and history teacher, Miss Cusack, for giving me this project so I can turn into a YouTube video and make no money off of it because I have 0 subscribers. But yeah, I think that's all we got for today. Thank you so much for coming to my show. This has been Course Crash with Maxwell Witten. Again, not Crash Course. Don't sue me, please. Anyway, I'll see you later. This video is brought to you by Ultramassive Video Game Console Guide Volume 3. I didn't read the other 2 volumes, but this was good enough for me. It taught me all that I need to know about video games. Thank you. Bye.